Hello. So nice to have Amy and Stephanie here with me today for this edition of Vintage JFD. And we're going to show you a couple of pieces. One excerpt, Dancing the Page, I think is from 2006, and the other one, Clear Cut, is from 2005. So I know a great deal of time has passed since those years, Amy and Stephanie, but I'm wondering if you might want to just give an update about what's been going on in the past few days, months, years, so on. You want to start, Steph?
Sure. Thanks so much for having us, Jane. Let's see. Well, I'll start by saying that I am a mom. I have a second grader and a fourth grader. You'll see I'm in my second grader's bedroom today. And also I am a social worker now. So I work currently for a nonprofit affordable housing company in Arlington. So I support social workers who are on the front lines working with low-income families, and that keeps us all pretty busy, along with virtual school right now and managing everything.
Yeah, I was wondering about virtual school with work and everything. That's quite a lot.
It has been quite a year, yes.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll see how the next few months go.
Okay, and Amy, I know you know something about virtual school.
I sure do. Yep. Since I guess leaving Jane Franklin Dance, I became a mom. I have 4 kids. That's a lot. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And so I have basically just been dealing with virtual school this year, preschool, a toddler, just fun, learning to manage through this challenging year. But it's been interesting, but fun at times. So
real different. I know different way to have everybody in the house as well. Is Jason at home working from home too?
So Jason's home. He works in our bedroom. That's his office. And then my 5th grader and 3rd grader work in their bedrooms, which I'm in my 3rd grader's room right now. And then I keep the 2 little ones downstairs, trying to keep them preoccupied during the day. My 5-year-old does like a virtual preschool, but that's only like 30, 40 minutes a day. So that's not much time. So yeah, so we're all home all the time.
So a lot of togetherness.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to mention too, to anybody who is watching, feel free to make a comment. We love getting the comments. I'll definitely put them on the screen if you chime in and send us a comment, and certainly we'll answer any questions. But I'm going to lead us into this first piece you're going to see. It's not a complete piece. It's an excerpt from a work we did called Dancing the Page. I remember the reason it was called Dancing the Page was because I collaborated with several different Washington, D.C. area poets. And most of these folks I became acquainted with because of my friend Kim Roberts, who's done a lot of poetry and very well known about her, especially her historical investigations into Washington, D.C. So I'm wondering, Stephanie and Amy, if you have anything you remember about that piece. The excerpt we're going to show has 2 poems in it, one by Martha Sanchez Lowry, which is the first one with the oranges. And then the other one is by Reuben Jackson, who also did the poetry. We won't show that piece today, but for the Leroy piece, Stephanie, if you remember that one. So does anything come to mind as you think about that piece?
I remember your the Dancing the Page series, and how it was just an interesting way to work, to use the text, either that we used it in the piece, we spoke the text in the piece, or we used it to help inform the movement that we created. It was just a lot of fun. And I definitely remember dancing with oranges. That was
Or trying to create movement with those oranges, how to manipulate them or work with them, pass them within one another, things like that. I remember that was an interesting and new thing for me as a dancer. I had never done anything like that before.
Yeah, and I'm always surprised when I look back too, because text and interviewing people has become such a big part of what I've done the last few years. It's interesting to look back. So why don't we refresh your memory? we'll take a look at this piece now, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. It's I think about a 4-minute excerpt. So there's no real graceful way to do this because of the ratio of the video, because it was done that long ago. So I'm going to have to remove us all first out of the stream, and then I'll put on the video. So
Okay.
We'll be right back.
I am engaged. From a field, I am engaged. I am from a field engaged. I am in the dialogue of life engaged. I am in the night musk wet, humus dark and filled with black eyed Susan. Engaged in the dialogue. In Panama Joe's version of heaven, Oye como va would rumble through the ears of the lucky few. Via a stereo even better than the one Ron O'Neill had in Superfly. Till then, there was no problem with the Sears and Roebuck model in the basement.
Okay. All right. So I know that was just sort of a short excerpt. I will be working to see if I can actually find a full length version of that one. But I do remember that we did it, I think, I believe that excerpt was from Gunston Theater 1. Do you remember performing there? And I'm guessing that because of it's a big space and you guys were having to talk on stage, which is kind of difficult.
Right, because it was a large theater, and so we had to
Yes,
really.
Project
yes.
their voices.
But I'm after Rick left, because Rick Sutherland was with the group really a fairly short time, maybe less than a year. I think we went on and did it like for a couple of different places, you know, with the Virginia Commission Tour grant, how we'd go to different places. So I think it's around somewhere. So,
Just gotta dig deep.
yeah, yeah. So I know that was just a tiny excerpt, but did anything come to mind about that other than the?
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy. Did
I
you
was
have
just gonna say it's crazy how you know, before watching it again, I probably didn't really remember it very well, and then watching it, it almost took me right back to it, like immediately. The poem kind of, I started kind of remembering it in my head, and movements. Like it's almost like when you smell something and it brings you back because that smell is so familiar. When we watching it was just so crazy how all of a sudden my brain just kind of clicked, and I remembered saying those words and rehearsing that, and even the movement. It was interesting to see how something we did so long ago, just by watching it. I think because like we rehearsed it so much and we did it so many times, it almost naturally kind of came back into my brain. So
one of the things,
Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
And there's Andy. Thanks for tuning in today, Andy. Nice. Thank you so much for that comment about the oranges and about those costumes.
I was just going to say that the partnering, you know, one of the things that I loved about your work, Jane, and being a member of your company was the partnering that we got to do and create together. And the physicality of your work, man, we'd never finished a piece without sweating and breathing hard. It was the best exercise. So I definitely have some visceral memories of, you know, working very hard and the partnering being really satisfying.
Right. Yeah. And it was, I obviously was very fortunate to have such dedicated dancers who would come and work twice a week on these things. And, you know, it's really been wonderful for me to have this opportunity to look back and have these few minutes to thank you all again for all that you contributed to these artistic ideas I would have, or crazy things I would want to try, and so generous and willing, always these dancers to do these things. Let's see, Andy threw in something else.
Yes.
You're over the back.
Yeah.
I remember being a little scared when we first did. It's like, you want me to do what? What exactly? You know, because normally we would do a lot of improvisation. It probably came out of that. And Jane was like, keep it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wait, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It was definitely I had to be very brave to do it because I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I think a lot of the movement did come from, I think you both probably remember this, there was a period of time where I would just kind of bring in a video camera into the studio and we would improvise, and then we'd try to go back and learn the improvisations. So I think that was maybe one of those times. So
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the one thing about working with you that I really enjoyed, was that we did do things like that. Like, you wanted our input and had us improv and then take things that we created and join them with what you wanted. And so that was always a lot of fun. And I enjoyed doing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, you know, something that makes it so rewarding to have, you know, really work with really talented people who are very creative themselves, not just in receiving ideas, but also sending ideas back. So, and I think this piece now that we're going to show, I'm sure that part of that process was part of this too. But any words or comments you want to offer about Clear Cut before we see that one? It's, what can I say about Clear Cut? It was a project I did I was working with a composer, Judith Shayton, and she was from the University of Virginia. And then somehow we got interested in this idea of the forts of Washington during the Civil War, which was a ring of forts that surrounded DC. And it's funny because recently, with current events, sort of some of this discussion about the Civil War kind of atmosphere has come up and been part of the conversation again. So anyway, but let's watch this and then we can talk about this more. How does that sound? Good. Okay. Again, this is a little awkward with the transition, but that's the ratio of the video is 4:3. So here we go. Okay. All right. So, thoughts after all these years?
Yeah, I have three things that really stick out for me for this piece, or four, three or four. The music, the sound was so driving. I remember that, and it was really juxtaposed with many moments in the piece. I remember our use of breath.
Sorry.
Sorry, did I take it from you?
No, you
Sorry.
said that from me. No, I was just when I was watching it, I could hear your breath or Carrie's breath, and I remember thinking that was very key. We had to listen for a certain person's breath, or we watched a certain particular person to know. If we turned to the one way, we watched Alex. We turned another way, maybe it was Holly, yes. And then you. I mean, we had to rely on each other a lot because of the music and
yes,
and the sounds that we were using. Sorry to interrupt you, Stephanie.
No. That's great. That's great because I remembered that before I watched it, and then watching it, it was so interesting because I could hear it, also. But then the other thing that I remember partnering with Amy in this piece. So it's so nice to be here together talking about it because I associate that piece with Amy too, because we worked closely together throughout it.
Yeah. I remember that we worked so long and hard on that unison phrase to get all the impulses and impacts the same, because there was absolutely no as you mentioned, no cueing from the music at all, really.
We had to be very there was this hyper awareness in our senses that we had to raise, in our audio and watching visual. So I just remember we had to be very present to be able to stay in unison or be in unison when we were.
Yeah, and I remember, Jane, you mentioning it took us. I remember working on that section a lot, over and over, and almost taking it, piece by piece by piece, because we had to really say, okay, if we're moving slightly this way, then we all look at this particular person, and then once the movement brings us this way, listen for the breath of this. We had to really dissect it to know who to follow. And how to be as one, as a unison. So,
and you both can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think there were movement fragments from several people that built that unison phrase. So it was just like a fragment from this person, a fragment from that person, and trying to merge those, because they really, it wouldn't be like any particular movement pattern any one individual would do, and that's what I've always loved about combining people, movement by a lot of different people, because it really pushes you to do things that you would normally never try to coordinate or come up with.
Yes, I do definitely remember some of that being like Holly's movement, the way she would create things. And I also remember this is another piece where we were just so exhausted at the end, where we fall at the end and we're like,
it's a break. I can lay down and breathe.
Because that was just the first section, wasn't it, of a longer piece?
Yes, it was. And I really have to see if I can still have a video camera to download it. But I remember the next section, Amy, is I believe you had this very nice long duet with Alex.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
That was very much, again, not anything that was with the music or anything like that, but it was, So I will let you know when I locate it.
I'd love to see it.
Let's see, we have a few. Oh, Andy is still with us today. Let's see, what did you got? Okay, thank you, Andy. If anyone else is watching as well, feel free, like Andy is, to give us a few comments here. So we love to hear from everybody who's watching. So But anyway, yeah. So part of the I realized too, as I go back over all of this stuff, is that the technology has just changed so fast, because some of this that was done on like they had sort of a high DV. There was DV, and then there was high DV, and there was, it was, oh man, it's just changed so fast. And in the old days, you used to have to download it and all in real time, rather than like it is now, where we just kind of can put the chip in the computer and get it all at once. So
Right. There was such a challenge with sharing video, because it was on a VHS tape. We couldn't just click and
right.
send.
Right. And I'm pretty sure for that show, I probably was running the video from a video camera,
Yes.
that I had
Well,
in
I
the wing.
remember a lot of times you guys setting up the video camera in the back so that you could record it. So I'm sure it was from a video camera.
Yeah. So, oh, wow. So we must, although, give a huge shout out to the other cast members. And I included their names in many of our announcements, but we had also in this cast for Clear Cut, and Carrie Monger, Holly Halverson, Elizabeth Fogarty, Alex Short, and Jeffrey Strum. Jeffrey Strum did pass away a few years ago. I can't quite remember what year it was that he did pass away, but the other dancers in the cast are still around the community, so I'm sure you will be seeing them on a future future vintage vintage JFD show. Because
it's so fun to see everything. I always joke with my kids that it was a different lifetime ago for me when I was a dancer, because they can hardly believe I ever was, because I'm just mom to them. My daughter just recently found the love of dance, so it's like exciting for me. She's a gymnast, but she's starting to enjoy dancing, so we'll dance in the kitchen together and things. And but seeing these other cast members, it just takes me back to that life that seems so long ago, and it's such a fun feeling to go back to it. So I'm really glad that you invited us to do this today.
Yeah, it's great to think back on these times. Sorry, Stephanie, I interrupted you.
Just going to add that it was a special time, and we spent a lot of time together, and built some great relationships in addition to the work we created. So thank you for the opportunity for that, Jane.
Oh yeah, and if you, as I mentioned, if you're watching now and want others to see these videos, stay up on our Jane Franklin Dance Facebook video page. Also, let's see, we do have some Vimeo on demand pages. If you actually want to download and have a copy, you can do that there for a little bit of money, just to help our ongoing fundraising, I guess. That would be great if you want to keep these for your own catalog for any reason. More than welcome to have them. So please check that out. And I guess that just about wraps us up for today. It was so wonderful to be able to have you both on the show, and I hope to continue to do these vintage JFD shows at least once every other week or something like that, and try and get some more of this work out there. So don't be surprised if I don't ask you again. Because between the two of you, you earn quite a few pieces. And it's also fun to know how the casts overlapped, because there was something else I was thinking about showing today, but then I looked at it, and then Amy wasn't in that version, or vice versa. And I looked at it, and there was Amy, but there wasn't Stephanie. So it's interesting to see how the casts kind of overlap and stuff. So, we have one more comment. It's from Peg Schaefer.
Hi, Peg.
Thank you, Peg. Oh, thanks. Great. Yes, and Peg has. We discovered recently from a vintage JFD show a piece that she'd forgotten that she was in.
Oh, that's fun.
That happens. So really
That's great. Yeah, it does.
Okay, well, thanks again so much. And I'm just going to take us out of the stream and end the show with just a little bumper for our summer camp. So we are planning on being in person this summer for summer camps. I'm, hoping that happens. I've had both my COVID shots now. And I think, have you, Stephanie, had both yours by now?
Oh, I was crossing my fingers that you could be in person. I've had one so far.
You've had one. How about you, Amy? You're on the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, trying to find a loophole if you can find one for me. Right. Up a little bit.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and come back week after next, and I don't know what I'm going to show yet, but I'll show something, and we'll have more of these special guest dancers on because I love seeing them again. All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Jane.
I'm going to you two can stay around, and I'll just go out with this little summer camp bumper, and we'll be able to chat a little more.
Okay.
Sounds good.